be honest, the PS5 has had a complicated journey. A brutal launch price, years of supply shortages, and a library that took a long time to really find its footing. A lot of players looked at their PS5 and quietly wondered, is this thing actually worth it? And that's a fair question. A console is only as good as its games. But here's where the story gets good. Because right now, in 2026, the PS5 library has quietly become something special. Games that push the hardware to its absolute limit. Experiences you simply cannot get anywhere else. Titles that make you sit back, stare at your screen, and finally understand exactly why you bought this console in the first place. Today, we're making the case. 20 PS5 games that don't just justify the price tag. They make the PS5 one of the greatest consoles ever made. Let's get into it.
Demon's Souls is where the modern Souls obsession started, and the PS5 remake finally lets it look as legendary as fans always pretended it was. Every castle wall, fog gate, and disgusting boss is rebuilt with ridiculous detail, to the point where just inching forward with your shield up feels tense, even if you know exactly what's around the corner. From a hardware perspective, it's a monster. Ultra-fast loads after death, smooth frame rates, and lighting that turns Boletaria's ruined kingdoms into real places instead of blurry PS3 memories. Because it launched as one of PS5's first true next-gen only titles and still sits high in best games lists years later, Demon's Souls is the Souls-like you show people when they ask what PS5 can really do.
Returnal is PS5 saying, okay, but what if a bullet hell arcade game and a prestige sci-fi movie crashed into each other? You're stuck in an endless loop on a hostile alien planet, sprinting, dashing, and grappling through storms of neon projectiles that look like art until they kill you for the 37th time. The SSD keeps restarts instant, the audio engine turns headphones into a horror device, and the DualSense makes rainfall, gunfire, and even Celine's heartbeat feel uncomfortably real. It's not an easy recommendation for casual players, but that's exactly why critics keep calling it one of PS5's boldest exclusives. It's a game that makes the console feel like a high-end arcade machine built just for you.
Rift Apart is the moment Sony said, let's build a game that's literally impossible to fake on old hardware. You're yanked through rifts into completely different worlds in seconds. No loading screens, just chaos, as the PS5's SSD streams entire levels mid-swing, while the DualSense sells every shot, clang, and impact. It looks like a playable Pixar movie, but it's more than visuals. It's a comfort food adventure with clever weapons, charming characters, and snappy pacing that never wastes your time. Because it launched as a PS5-only showcase and still shows up in modern Best Exclusives rankings, Rift Apart is one of those games you can literally point at and say, that's why you upgrade to PS5.
Marvel's Spider-Man 2 answers one simple question. What if we took everything people loved about the first game and then doubled literally all of it? Two Spider-Men, a much bigger New York, instant character swapping, and story beats that swing from lighthearted Marvel humor to genuinely dark Venom horror. This feels like a high-budget superhero movie you get to direct in real time. The PS5's SSD is flexing here. Fast travel is basically select a block and you're already in midair. And combat piles particle effects, gadgets, and abilities on screen without melting. By 2026, it's still sitting near the top of best PS5 exclusive lists because it nails that fantasy better than any other superhero game. What if swinging around the city just felt perfect for hours at a time?
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth takes one of gaming's most iconic stories and says, what if we blew this up into a massive, modern action RPG that still surprises fans who know every plot twist by heart? On PS5, Midgar is just the prologue. Now you're sprinting across open regions, diving into side quests, chocobo races, minigames, and optional bosses that feel like self-contained episodes in a premium anime season.
Combat is a slick hybrid of real-time action and tactical command, and the console's SSD keeps flashy transitions, big summons, and cinematic set pieces flowing with almost no downtime. With critics calling it one of 2024's top-rated exclusives and players praising its bold, alternate timeline storytelling, Rebirth makes PS5 feel like the home of big, dramatic Japanese RPGs again. Baldur's Gate 3 is the kind of game where lighting a puddle on fire during a fight can accidentally rewrite your entire playthrough, and PS5 somehow holds that chaos together. You're not just picking dialogue options, you're rolling virtual dice, failing, improvising, seducing, betraying, and occasionally throwing your companions off cliffs, with the game reacting to almost all of it. On PS5, the jump from old hardware is massive, slick couch co-op, controller-friendly UI, and enough performance for reactive cinematic storytelling that feels way too ambitious for a console port of a classic CRPG. That's why in 2026 you still see it sitting at the top of PS5 best games lists and being called one of the best RPGs ever made. It turns your console into a tabletop campaign that can easily steal hundreds of hours.
Elden Ring is the moment From Software took the brutal, precise combat of Dark Souls and just dropped it into a world so huge you can literally spend hours riding in the wrong direction and still find something unforgettable. On PS5, that open world feels seamless. Towering castles in the distance, underground cities full of stars, swamps you absolutely should not be standing in, all stitched together with short loads and a rock-solid performance mode. What justifies the console here isn't graphics alone, it's freedom. Every hill you see is a potential boss arena. Every random cave could be the start of an entirely new questline that your friends never discovered. With a staggering 96 Metacritic and Game of the Generation energy, Elden Ring has become one of the main reasons people talk about PS5 as the place to experience modern action RPGs.
God of War Ragnarok feels like Santa Monica Studio trying to squeeze an entire mythological trilogy into one final, ridiculous, over-the-top road trip with Kratos and Atreus. On PS5, it hits you first with spectacle, cinematic one-shot camera work, god-level boss fights, and realms that range from lava-soaked battlefields to quiet, snow-buried forests, all running at higher resolutions and frame rates than the previous generation could dream of. But what actually sells the console is the mix of raw violence and emotional writing. This is a story about parenting, prophecy, and trying to break cycles of abuse in between ripping dragons out of the sky. Sitting at a 94 critical average and often called one of the best PlayStation games of all time, Ragnarok is the kind of experience that makes a PS5 feel mandatory, not optional.
Astrobot isn't just another platformer, it's Sony building a love letter to every PlayStation generation and hiding it inside a game that feels impossibly joyful to play. From the moment you drop into those toy box worlds, the DualSense stops being a controller and turns into a magic trick. You feel rain, rocket boosters, and even tiny footsteps in your hands as Astro sprints across glass, sand, and metal. Level after level is packed with deep cuts to PS1, PS2, PS3, PS4, and obscure fan-favorite characters, so every stage is half nostalgia trip, half technical flex. And because critics have called it one of the highest-rated games on PS5 with a 94 Metacritic and a wall of perfect scores, you're not just buying a mascot game, you're buying a system seller that proves why this hardware exists.
Hades looks simple on the surface, an isometric hack and slash where you try to escape the underworld. But the longer you play it on PS5, the more it turns into a full-blown obsession. Runs are fast, responsive, and brutally fair, with every death feeding back into new story dialogue, upgrades, and relationships with a cast of charismatic Greek gods and weirdos. The PS5's quick loads, crisp 60 FPS, and subtle haptics make that one more run loop dangerously addictive, whether you're playing for 20 minutes or an entire night. That's why it keeps showing up in top-rated PS5 lists years after launch. It's proof that a stylish indie roguelike can justify the console just as much as a giant open-world blockbuster. It Takes Two is the rare co-op game that doesn't just allow a second player, it absolutely demands one and builds every idea around that. You're a divorcing couple turned into tiny dolls, forced to work through your issues by platforming, puzzle solving, and occasionally piloting squirrels or fighting vacuum cleaners in perfectly choreographed set pieces. On PS5, the colorful art and smooth performance make it easy for non-gamers to jump in, while the constant genre switching keeps even experienced players on their toes. It's frequently recommended as one of the best couch co-op experiences on the console, and honestly, it sells the PS5 as a family relationship console as much as a hardcore gamer machine.
Helldivers 2 turns your PS5 into a chaos machine where democracy is delivered exclusively via orbital bombardment and friendly fire. It's a third-person co-op shooter where every mission is a barely controlled disaster. You're calling down mechs, airstrikes, and supply pods that can crush your squad just as easily as the bugs and robots you're supposed to kill. Live service games come and go, but Helldivers 2 stuck because it's genuinely fun to lose, and the community-wide war map makes every successful mission feel like you're nudging the entire galaxy a few pixels at a time. As one of 2024's best-selling premium games and a huge PS5 PC co-op hit, it proves that Sony's console isn't just for single-player epics. It can absolutely own the multiplayer space too.
The Last of Us Part 2 was already one of the most talked about games of the last decade. The PS5 remastered version just removes every technical excuse not to play it. You get higher resolution, smoother performance, and DualSense support, but the real killer feature is the no-return roguelike mode, which takes that brutal combat sandbox and turns it into a replayable challenge machine. Story-wise, it's still one of the most divisive, emotionally draining experiences you can have on a console, and that controversy is honestly part of why it sticks with people. In 2026, the remaster stands on PS5 as the final form of Naughty Dog's bleak masterpiece, a package that feels like a prestige TV series and a high-end stealth action simulator fused into one. Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut on PS5 turns every frame into concept art. Golden forests, swaying pampas grass, blood-red leaves in the wind, the director's cut takes that already iconic look, sharpens it up, boosts performance, and adds the Icky Island expansion on top. It's the rare open world where following the wind to your objective actually feels meditative instead of like a checklist, and combat lets you roleplay a duel-loving samurai or a sneaky, dishonorable ghost. Because the PS5 version bundles in all of that with DualSense features and near-instant loads, it's become the definitive way to play what many consider one of PlayStation's best new IPs. Forbidden West takes the already stunning robot dinosaur apocalypse of Zero Dawn and cranks every dial until it breaks. On PS5, dense jungles, deserts, and underwater ruins are layered with detail, while Burning Shores, the PS5-only expansion, throws volcanic LA, flying set pieces, and some of the sharpest visuals on the system at you. Combat is this beautiful chaos of traps, elemental arrows, and climbing weak points on machines that feel like mini boss fights even in random encounters. It appears in almost every must-play PS5 list because it's that perfect showpiece. You can pause mid-fight, pan the camera, and say, yeah, this is why you don't stay on PS4 forever.